Hey Francisco, I got a question for you. What are intervals?
Intervals are the distances between notes, classified by their size and quality. The first step in identifying an interval is to figure out its size.
Okay, now that I know what an interval is, how do you calculate the size of an interval?
The way to do this is by recognizing how many lines and spaces are between each note. As you can see on the staff, whether it be treble, bass, alto, or tenor, size is merely visual. Seconds are adjacent lines to space, and they sound like this. Thirds skip to the next line or space and sound like this. Fourths are one bigger than thirds, and they sound like this. Fifths skip one line or space and sound like this. Sixths are one bigger than fifths, and they sound like this. Sevenths skip two lines or spaces, and they sound like this. And octaves are the next note higher with the same name and sound like this.
Hey Jonathan, I was talking to Francisco and he explained to me what intervals are and what their size is. But what is interval quality?
Interval qualities is the exact space between two notes measured in equal temperament of half steps. Interval qualities can be classified as major, minor, perfect, augmented, and diminished. Fourths, fifths, and octaves are classified as perfect. If you add a half step, then the interval becomes an augmented. If you take one away, it becomes a diminished. Seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths can be classified as major, minor, diminished, or augmented. To make the interval that is a major a minor, simply reduce by one half step. To make a minor interval a diminished one, reduce it by one more half step. To make a major interval an augmented, simply add a half step. Why are interval inversions useful and how are they done?
So interval inversion is the changing of one note's position by an octave. Either up or down, both size and quality will change when inverting an interval. Seconds inverts to sevenths, thirds inverts to sixths, fourths inverts to fifths, and octaves invert to unisons. Major inverts to minor, perfect inverts to perfect, and augmented inverts to diminished. Inverting intervals is very useful in determining the size and quality of a large interval, such as a sixth, seventh, or an octave. Hey Alan, now that I know what interval quality is, how can you calculate interval quality easily using anchor intervals and inversions?
Interval quality is easily found by using anchor intervals and inversions. Perfect unisons are basically the same note, the same line, and therefore no steps between the two. Unisons can never be diminished, only augmented, and no matter which change is made to any note, the size can only grow apart. Seconds, because of their small size, and it can't be counted. Minor seconds are one half step apart, and major seconds are two half steps apart. All thirds with the bottom note C, F, and G without accidentals are perfect, and all of the thirds with no accidentals are minor. All fourths with no accidentals are perfect, except for those with F and the bottom note, which are augmented. All fifths with no accidentals are perfect, except for those with B in the bottom, which are diminished. Sixths are easily calculated by inverting them to thirds and using the anchor intervals of thirds. Sevenths are easily calculated by inverting them to seconds and by counting the half steps in the second. Octave quality is easy to determine because it's basically the same note, low or high.
Hey Saul, how can interval quality be calculated using the key signature?
In a major scale, every interval above the tonic can be either perfect or major. The major intervals are the second, the third, the sixth, and the seventh. The perfect intervals are the fourth, the fifth, and the octave. To calculate interval quality, calculate the size of the interval, then if the bottom note is the tonic, ask if the top note is in the key signature. If that's the case, the interval will be major or perfect. If the top note is a half step lower or higher than a perfect interval, it will be diminished or augmented. If it's a half step lower or higher than a major interval, it will either be minor or augmented. Finally, if it's 2 half steps lower than a major, it will be diminished.